Hello and welcome to the One Shot Show. My name is Mark.
You sound a little bit tired there, so I'll pick up for you. And my name is Matt.
And today we are talking about burnout.
And how to avoid it, most importantly.
Not how to reach it. I have been severely misinformed. I'm just throwing all my notes now.
Oh, dear. But yeah, how to avoid burnout. And I think it's sort of... this one's the monster under the bed for a lot of GMs. You don't really like to look at it directly or think about it. And you feel very guilty, I think, when you reach that point where you are burned out. Because now you're in this really uncomfortable situation where you probably want to keep playing D&D or tabletop RPGs. You want to keep, engaging in your hobby. You want to keep socializing with these people that you are seeing every week or every other week or however often it is. And you're sat there going, and yet I can't keep carrying the burden of running this. And then you have to make the call. Do I take a break, knowing that risks the whole, campaign falling apart and losing too much momentum? Do I try and push through it and possibly end up hating the thing that I enjoy? Burnout is this ugly thing, but it's a reality that we all need to face at some point. And when you're looking at it dead in the face, you can actually take meaningful steps to avoid it.
Have you experienced burnout yourself for campaigns?
Absolutely. And I think most GMs probably have at some point. And actually, that leads me really nicely into the first major thing I'd want to cover off here, right? The first step actually to avoiding burnout is to figure out your limit, right? And I know what my limit is because I've experienced burnout. Once you've figured out, how hard you can go, how frequently you can run games, how many sessions you can run back to back before you need a bit of a breather, before you need a bit of a break. Once you know what limitations you're working within, you can start to set a pace that is going to work for you and be sustainable long term so that you don't burn yourself out. That might be that you start running games fortnightly instead of weekly. It might be that you stop doing maps for every single session because the effort of getting those sourced and printed is, just a bit too much all the time. But learn your limits. That is step one to avoiding burnout.
Now, when you're talking about limits, this is actually really, really interesting. And I have a lot to say about this.
That's because you have no limits, as we know. You're
that's not true.
You're the D&D version of an extrovert where you are fueled by more sessions rather than having them sap away at your battery.
Now, that is because I have a couple of tips and tricks that I've picked up over the years to help me gather energy from D&D rather than pouring all of it into a bottomless pit, because I have experienced burnout. And the time I experienced it is when I was only running one campaign for one group of people. Today, right now, I run maybe 10 games a week. I am a professional dungeon master. I take it very seriously. I am playing all the time, and I could keep at this pace until I die. And the difference between when I was running one game for some friends and feeling exhausted and burnt out and wanting that to finish, which we eventually did, we crawled the end, we wrapped with the campaign, and now where I'm running 1 or 2 games every single day, is that I have come to realize that I'm playing for me and not specifically just to facilitate other people. And something that you as a player can do for your DM, and this I think might be the most important piece of advice that you could take away from this episode in particular, is if you don't want your DM to be burned out, when you show up to this table with your character, embrace yourself. I'm about to talk about something I've never talked about before.
I'm ready.
Player buy-in. If you are interested in this world and you want to explore it, and you are giving energy back to your game master and whatever world you are exploring, whatever system you are using, that's going to fuel them. And that's really similar to, speaking as someone who's done a lot of stage and theater, if the audience is laughing and reciprocating and loving it, you can feel that energy, and you could keep going forever. And I run a lot of games for kids and teenagers who will often feed me back a lot of energy immediately.
Yeah. Honestly, sometimes all it takes is for, a couple of players after the session to go, that was a great session. Truly, as you say, when you're getting that feedback, it means a lot. And if you're not, again, this is groundbreaking advice. Talk to your players. I've had to do this before. I was running this campaign that had these very, very complicated dungeons, these very elaborate set pieces with these really detailed puzzles that took, sometimes months to build and prepare. And off the back of one of them, I actually sat my players down and I was like, hey, look, I know that none of you are ungrateful. I know that you're enjoying what I'm doing, but I need people to every so often say, wow, that was really cool, right? Because this takes a lot of effort for me. And they went, oh, okay, sorry, didn't realize we weren't giving you that feedback. Because they were having a great time and they were very grateful. They were just forgetting to say it because, look, that happens. And from that point on, they started just, making a point to, if they enjoyed something, mention it to me. And that was enough. We were able to continue playing at the same pace with the same level of intensity and effort that I'd been putting in. And instead of being draining, as you say, it was invigorating. And when we talk about learning your limit, I think that actually factors into it, right? It's like, figure out the things that are draining versus invigorating to you, right? Like I use the example of maps every single week.
Yeah.
If you find rolling out a map and having your players go, whoa, cool map, really excites you, do that every single week rather than trying to theater of the mind it. If you're like me, though, and the effort of sourcing the map isn't worth the payoff of your players going, oh, cool, a map, then don't. Just don't do that, right? Figure out the things that drain you versus the things that excite you.
That's another really, really excellent point about...
Thank you.
You're welcome. Playing games that you personally enjoy, because you are not just there to facilitate somebody else's adventure. Your character is your world, and it should be full of things that you really love. And if you love designing puzzles or creating maps and having grand adventures like that, put those in. I really love big concept magical ideas, like worlds that are infinite in scope, or where magic is a little bit messy, or grand political schemes. And I will build worlds with those, and I'll fill them full of comedy characters that allow me to do silly voices. And I also I make everything very political because I'm a very politically engaged person. And it allows me to vent some of my frustrations, to have characters in these games who represent real-world concepts.
Yeah, which, by the way, is a really interesting topic that we will want to go into more depth at some point. Is using your fictional worlds as ways to theory craft real-world political conflicts, right?
Absolutely.
But I do the same thing. We've talked about this to tedious length, which is my stripper name. I run these super detailed long form campaigns with these big ideas. They're very serious.
My stripper name is One Shot.
We can cut that pause out. Right? My point is, if I ever manage to get to it, my point is, I actually run games that way for exactly the same reason you run your games your way, which is that's what excites me. That's what invigorates me. That's what gets me out of bed on a Sunday morning to go and run D&D.
Yeah.
Now, with all that being said, I think it is still perfectly possible to be doing everything right and still start getting a little bit burnt out, because sometimes the reason we feel burnt out has absolutely nothing to do with the game we're running.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just got a whole lot going on in life. Things are stressful at work. You're busy trying to move house. There's some other personal drama going on. And you still want to be able to show up and enjoy your social time. But you don't want to have to be the one thinking about it anymore.
Yeah.
You want to be able to just show up and, let it happen to you a little bit so that you still get to hang out with your friends. If you're anything like me and you're mostly, running games for friends, and you just don't have the capacity in the rest of your life to be bearing the organizational brunt of GMing.
A lot of GMs do take that organizational brunt, as you describe it. And something that isn't often talked about is the onus is on the GM.
I seldom talk about the onus.
Well, we're going to talk about the onus now.
Please.
We're getting deep into the onus here. To organize the social get-together, you are the host, you are the game master, and you have that position of responsibility over this cohort of your friends and colleagues who are coming together to play that game. And often you are taking the time out, you are doing all of the management, the organization, all the kind of production roles.
Yep.
And that's why if you're a player, bring some snacks, bring some food, maybe give another player a lift in and try and lift some of that pressure off the DM and take away some of that onus.
And I actually think one of the biggest things you can do to take on the onus is if you are a player, as much as possible, show up wanting to have a good time. If you can carry some of the effort required in having a good time, meet your GM halfway, that's going to take a lot of the burden off, right? There is nothing worse to me, genuinely, there is nothing worse than a player who sits down every week and goes, entertain me.
Yeah.
And look, I will because I want to, but don't show up and make it my problem, right? It's like going to a comedy show. You should show up to a comedy show ready to have some laughs, right? If you sit there with arms folded and a scowl on your face, waiting for something to be funny enough to meet your standards, then you're a prick. Don't go to comedy clubs.
There are lots of players who will go to D&D simply for the social interaction. And they may not be totally like across the system they're playing. And that's often a burden on your game master to be like, here is how everything works. Here are the mechanics. And you can really like that person as a person and love hanging out with them. But if they are draining your energy at the table, if they don't know how the mechanics work, then organize a time to hang out with them outside of playing a game.
Yeah. And look, you are excuse me, we can cut that out. You're welcome to and while you're at it, Jackson, make me look pretty.
I don't think we have the post budget. I'm sorry.
You are welcome, by the way, to cut players out if you want.
Yeah.
We've talked about this a little bit before as well. One of the other great ways you can avoid burning out as a GM is remember that you are in charge. If you aren't enjoying the system that you're running and your players go, well, we won't play if it's a different system. Well, maybe it's time to find new players.
Exactly.
Because playing the system is burning you out. If there is a fundamental mismatch, your players demand maps every single week and you hate doing maps, that burns you out. Just don't do it. Your players want to play weekly. You can't commit to more than monthly. Find other players. If the player is willing to meet you halfway on it, then maybe they can continue in the campaign, but you are totally allowed to set the terms of engagement as the GM to make it something sustainable for you.
If you were taking on that full onus of organizing the place to play, organizing the people, and getting across all that system, you are allowed to play the game that you want, the way that you want to. And as long as you communicate to your players and you say, this is going to be nothing but a dungeon grind with monster after monster, because that is what I really feel passionate about running, your players can self-select and say, oh, I only want roleplay. You're a wonderful person. I'll continue to hang out with you. Sign me up for the next game when we're doing something else.
Yep, absolutely. And look, some players even have the maturity to show up and know that they're only interested in certain parts of the game, and that's perfectly fine as well. I've had a player at my table. There's no two ways about it. He was a bit of a min-maxer. He loved building the most powerful but totally one-dimensional character possible. He didn't engage in the role play. He wasn't necessarily involved in solving puzzles, but as soon as combat spun up, man, he was so ready to roll his dice and show off all his cool shit, and he was having a blast.
That is a totally valid way to play.
And he was fully on board with everything else, and it meant that this person who wasn't otherwise engaged in the other things that I was doing wasn't a bother to me. It wasn't a drain, because when he was engaged, he was totally engaged. He was ready to enjoy the combat. I didn't have to put in the extra, 10% of effort to make this combat super special before he would be entertained by it. He wanted to be entertained by it, and it worked a treat. There's one last thing that I kind of want to bring into here as well, though, which is, for God's sake, take breaks. If you are burnt out, just stop. Just take the break. Something that I often do with my group, we've talked about this back when we talked about how to break up with 5th edition, is, if you are lucky enough to have other GMs at your table who are interested in trying things out, you've got a player who maybe wants to step into the GM chair, it can actually be a really good idea to go, hey, look, I need to take a bit of a break. I'd like to pause this campaign for 8 weeks. If someone else wants to run a short form campaign to fill up those 8 weeks, go ahead. I'm happy to support you and help you and teach you the ropes. Or if anyone's got a new system they want to try out, sometimes I'm able to just straight up switch systems for 8 weeks. And because we're all doing something new and it's refreshed, it reinvigorates me and it helps me avoid hitting that wall of burnout. I finish up the 8 weeks totally ready to carry on with the original campaign week to week to week.
I strongly agree with that. And in my personal experience running games for kids and teens is that every 10 or so weeks, I get a 2-week break when they go on holiday. And I come back and I feel refreshed and ready to launch into like another term of running games. And I found that really helpful.
Yeah. Well, look, I don't know about you, but I feel pretty tired now. I don't think I can round out the extra bit of time on this episode.
I think we need to take a break.
Yeah, I think let's take a week off maybe, and we'll see you guys in the next one. If you like what you just heard, feel free to support us on Patreon. Every little bit helps. Go to patreon.com/OneShotShow.